Come in and let your shoulders fall, wherever you are right now, whatever room, whatever chair, whatever bed. You can stop holding it all up for the next little while, just for these minutes. Let it go. Take a breath in, slow, and let it out even slower. And as you breathe out, say this quietly in your heart, not to me, to him. I'm still here, and I'm still yours. Because that's really what the season has been asking of you, isn't it? Not your strength, not your 5-year plan, not your explanations, just this. Are you still here? Are you still willing to stay, even when nothing is moving? You have been waiting for a long time now, if we're honest. Waiting for the door to open, waiting for the phone to ring, waiting for the test results, the job offer, the apology, the change of heart, the breakthrough you were so sure was coming last year, and the year before that. And somewhere in the waiting, a thought crept in. Quiet at first, then louder. Maybe this season is empty. Maybe I'm just stuck. Maybe God moved on to someone else's story and forgot to come back for mine. I want to sit with you in that thought tonight, not to argue you out of it with clever words, but to gently, patiently, show you something you may not have been able to see from inside the waiting itself. The season you're in right now, the one that feels like nothing, the one that feels like delay, the one that feels nailed to 7 blank months on a calendar, is not wasted. It never was. Let that settle for a moment. Not wasted, not empty, not forgotten, not a punishment, not proof that you did something wrong, not evidence that you are less loved, less chosen, less seen than anyone else whose prayers seem to get answered faster. You are in a season, and a season, by its very nature, has a purpose that isn't fully visible while you're standing inside it. Think about winter for a moment. Think about a bare tree in January. Stripped down, grey, silent, nothing moving in it, nothing green, nothing that looks like life at all. If you didn't know better, you might walk past that tree and call it dead. But underneath the ground, in the dark, in the cold, in the place no one can see, the roots are doing the most important work of the tree's entire life. They are reaching, they are anchoring, they are preparing to hold up everything that spring is about to ask that tree to carry. No one claps for the roots. No one takes pictures of the roots. There are no reels of the roots working underground in February. The applause, the blossoms, the fruit, that all comes later, in a season everyone can see. But the roots come first. The roots come in the waiting. And so do you. Right now, in this hidden, unclapped for, unphotographed season of your life, you are being rooted. You are being prepared to hold up something that hasn't been given to you yet because you weren't ready to hold it yet. Not because God is slow, not because God is careless with your years, but because God is building something underneath you that has to be strong before it can be seen. I know that doesn't feel like comfort at 2 a.m, when you're staring at the ceiling wondering if this is just going to be your life now. I know the roots are growing doesn't pay the bills or heal the marriage or bring back the person you lost or undo the diagnosis. I'm not saying that to minimize what you're carrying. I'm saying it because it's true and because you need truth more than you need distraction right now. So let's talk honestly about what waiting does to a person. Because if we don't name it, it will keep working on you in the dark and it will make you bitter instead of ready. Waiting exposes what you actually believe about God. It's easy to trust him when the answer comes fast. It's easy to say God is good when the job offer lands the same week you applied, when the pregnancy test says yes on the first try, when the relationship heals in one honest conversation. That kind of trust hasn't been tested. It's untried faith, and untried faith always sounds more solid than it is. But waiting, long waiting, waiting that stretches past the point where you thought you could stand it. Waiting takes your faith and puts it under real weight. And under that weight, you find out what your trust was actually built out of. Was it built out of what God can do for you, or out of who God actually is? Because if it was only ever built on what he does for you, the waiting season will feel like abandonment. It will feel like he left. It will feel like the relationship was conditional the whole time, and now that the conditions aren't being met on your timeline, you start to wonder if there was ever a relationship at all. But if you can let the waiting take you past that, if you can let it strip away the version of faith that only shows up when the answers show up, you find something underneath that is so much sturdier. You find a trust that isn't about what you're getting, it's about who you belong to. That kind of trust says, even if this door never opens the way I want it to, even if this doesn't get resolved the way I've been praying for, even if I have to carry this longer than I ever imagined, I still belong to him. I am still his. And that was never up for negotiation. That's not resignation. That's not giving up. That is the strongest kind of faith there is, because it survives disappointment. It survives delay. It survives silence. And silence. Let's talk about the silence for a moment, because I know that's part of what makes this season feel so heavy. You've prayed. You've asked. You've probably asked the same thing so many times you've lost count, wondering if repetition is even allowed, wondering if you're annoying him, wondering if he's tired of hearing your voice bring up the same request. He's not tired of your voice. He has never once been tired of your voice. But sometimes he is quiet in a way that feels unbearable, and I'm not going to pretend that's easy to sit inside of. I'm not going to tell you that silence always means wait and never means no, because I don't know your situation, and anyone who claims to know that for certain about your specific life is not being honest with you. What I can tell you is this: silence from God is never the same thing as absence. A parent can be sitting in the very same room as a child who is scared in the dark, close enough to touch, present the entire time, and still not be saying a word, because sometimes presence is the thing that's needed, not explanation. You are not alone in this waiting, even on the nights when it feels the most like you are. He has not stepped out of the room. He has not turned his attention elsewhere. He has not gotten distracted by someone else's more urgent story. He is present in your waiting the same way he would be present in your celebrating, only right now, his presence looks like staying instead of speaking. Let me ask you something, gently. What if the waiting itself was never meant to be endured until the real part of your story starts? What if the waiting is the real part? We tend to think of our lives in terms of events: the wedding, the promotion, the baby, the breakthrough, the healing, the reunion. We treat those as the meaningful parts and everything leading up to them as filler, as dead air, as the boring part before the movie really starts. But that's not how a life actually works, and it's not how growth actually works. And if you look honestly at anyone whose faith you admire, anyone whose steadiness under pressure makes you want to be more like them, you'll find that steadiness was built almost entirely during seasons that looked like nothing was happening. Character isn't formed in the moment the answer arrives. Character is formed in the months and years before the answer arrives, while you're deciding, day after day, whether you're going to keep trusting even though nothing has changed yet. That decision, the quiet one you make alone, the one nobody else sees, the one you make again tomorrow, and the day after that, that decision is not wasted time. That is the actual substance of your life with God. That is where the relationship gets real, because it's costing you something to keep showing up. Anyone can show up for God on the mountaintop. It takes something else entirely to show up for him in the valley, in the waiting room, in the empty apartment, in the marriage that hasn't healed yet, in the body that hasn't recovered yet, in the dream that hasn't opened up yet. And he sees that. He sees every single time you chose to trust him instead of walking away. He sees every prayer you kept praying even when it felt like talking to a wall. He sees the nights you didn't feel anything and prayed anyway. He sees the mornings you didn't want to get up and got up anyway, and lived another day of faith you didn't feel, because feeling it was never actually the requirement. Let's slow down here for a moment. Breathe with me again, in and out. You don't have to feel strong right now for this to be true. You don't have to feel close to him right now for this to be true. You don't have to have it figured out, have the right words, have the theology perfectly sorted, have your emotions under control. You just have to keep showing up. That's it. That's the whole invitation tonight. Just keep showing up. I want to talk about something else that waiting does, because it's important and it's something people don't say out loud very often. Waiting reveals what you've been leaning on that isn't him. When everything is moving, when your plans are working, when your timeline is intact, it's easy to lean on your own competence, your own planning, your own ability to make things happen through sheer effort and willpower. And there's nothing wrong with effort. There's nothing wrong with planning. But if effort and planning are the actual foundation you're standing on, the waiting season will eventually reveal that, because Waiting is exactly the kind of season where effort and planning stop working the way they used to. You can't force this door open. You can't outplan this delay. You can't work hard enough to make someone love you back, or make a body heal faster, or make a grieving process finish on schedule, or make a prodigal come home before they're ready. Some things simply do not respond to effort, and when you hit the wall of your own limitation, you find out very quickly what you are actually trusting in. If it was mostly yourself, this season will feel like the floor falling out from under you. But if underneath the effort, underneath the planning, underneath the competence, there was always a deeper trust that your life belongs to Him and not to your own management of it, then the waiting season becomes the place where that deeper trust finally gets to come up to the surface and hold you, instead of staying buried under all your striving. This is what the waiting is uncovering in you. Not your weakness, though it will feel like that some days. It's uncovering your true foundation. It's asking you gently but firmly, what are you actually standing on? And it keeps asking until you find the real answer, which is Him. Only Him. Not your resume, not your 5-year plan, not your ability to fix things. Him. I want to tell you something about seeds, because I think it might help. A seed goes into the ground and disappears. From the outside, that looks like loss. It looks like the seed is gone, buried, finished, absorbed into the dirt with nothing left of what it was. But that disappearance is not the end of the seed's story, it's the beginning of it. The seed has to break open in the dark before anything can grow from it. The very things that look like destruction, the burial, the pressure, the darkness, the breaking, are the exact conditions the seed needs in order to become what it was always meant to be. You cannot skip that part. You cannot get the harvest without the burial. You cannot get the tree without the breaking open of the seed in the dark, unseen, unphotographed, seemingly wasted ground. Your waiting season is the ground. It is doing to you what the ground does to the seed. It feels like burial. It feels like disappearing. It feels, some days, like being absorbed into a darkness that will never end and never produce anything. But it is producing something. It is producing you, the version of you that can only be grown in this particular soil, under this particular pressure, in this particular darkness. There is no shortcut to that version of you. There was never going to be a shortcut. The waiting is not standing between you and the life you're supposed to have. The waiting is how you become the person who can actually carry that life once it comes. I want to gently ask you to consider something you might resist at first. What if you stopped treating this season as an obstacle to get past and started treating it as a room to actually live in? I know that sounds strange. You've probably been living with one foot out the door of this season the entire time, refusing to fully settle in, refusing to unpack, refusing to make peace with where you are, because making peace with it feels like giving up on it, changing. Like if you stop straining against the waiting, you're somehow accepting a smaller life than the one you were promised. But that's not what peace is. Peace is not the absence of desire for change. You can still want the change. You can still ask for the change, pray for the change, hope for the change with your whole heart. Peace is simply refusing to let the absence of change right now convince you that you are abandoned, forgotten, or unloved. You can want a different season and still fully live in this one. In fact, you have to, because the years you spend gritting your teeth and waiting for real life to start are years of real life you don't get back. This is real life. This waiting, this uncertain middle, this in-between, you didn't choose and wouldn't have chosen. This is not a rehearsal. This is your actual life happening right now, today, in this room, in this body, in this circumstance. So, what does it look like to live here instead of just enduring here? It looks like gratitude that isn't waiting for the outcome to arrive first. Finding something today, one thing, even a small thing, that you can be honestly thankful for, not because everything is fine, but because gratitude and grief can share the same room. You can grieve what hasn't come yet and still notice the morning light on the wall. Both things are true at once. That's not denial. That's maturity. It looks like showing up for the people in front of you, even when your heart is somewhere else, waiting for news that hasn't come. The people around you right now are not a distraction from your real life while you wait for the good part to start. They are part of your real life. Love them anyway. Show up for them anyway. Your waiting season doesn't excuse you from loving well. If anything, it's training you for it. It looks like taking care of the body and the mind you've been given, even though the season feels like it doesn't deserve the effort. Rest when you're tired. Eat like someone who is going to need strength for what's coming. Move your body. Get sunlight. These aren't small, unspiritual details beneath your attention. They are part of stewarding the life you have while you wait for the life you're hoping for. And it looks like talking to him. Honestly. Not the polished version, not the version that sounds impressive in front of other people. The real version, the tired one, the frustrated one, the one that has questions it's almost afraid to ask out loud. He can handle your honesty. He has never once been afraid of your doubt, your anger, your exhaustion, your "why is this taking so long?" Bring it all to him. He would rather have your honest wrestling than your polished silence. Let's breathe again together. In, slow, and out, slower. I want to say something plainly because I think you need to hear it plainly tonight, without decoration. You are not behind. There is no invisible schedule that everyone else is keeping, and you alone have fallen off of. Comparison is a thief in seasons like this. It will walk you past every open door in someone else's life and never once show you what that person's own hidden waiting looked like before their door opened. Every single person whose life looks resolved right now once stood exactly where you are standing, in a season that looked like nothing, wondering if it would ever end. You're not being punished. Waiting is not a consequence you're paying for. It is not evidence of some hidden failure you haven't identified yet. Some of the most faithful, most devoted, most surrendered people who ever lived spent long seasons in exactly this kind of unresolved middle. Waiting is not proof of distance from God. Sometimes it's proof of how much He trusts you to hold on. And you are not forgotten, not for one single day of this, not for 1 hour. He has not lost track of your file. He has not moved on to more urgent business. Your life is not too small a thing to hold His attention. He is not managing the universe so broadly that your particular ache gets lost in the shuffle. He knows exactly what today has cost you. He knows exactly how many times you've almost given up and didn't. He is not distant from that. He is closer to that than you can currently feel. I want to invite you now to do something. Not out loud if you don't want to. Just in your own heart, in your own words. Tell Him what you're actually waiting for. Not the polished version, the real one. Say it plainly, even if it's just a whisper in your mind. And then tell Him this, even if it costs you something to say it. I trust you with the timing, not because I understand it, not because I like it, but because I believe you are good, even when I cannot see what you are doing. That sentence is not weakness. That sentence, said honestly, in the middle of a season that has taken everything out of you, is one of the strongest things a person can say. It is the sentence that roots grow from. It is the sentence that turns waiting into becoming. You don't have to say it and feel instantly better. You don't have to say it and have the waiting suddenly make sense. You just have to say it and mean it as much as you're able to mean it today. That's enough. That has always been enough. There's one more thing I want to walk through with you before we close, because I think it matters, and I don't want to rush past it. There is a difference between waiting and being stuck, and I think sometimes we confuse the two, and that confusion adds a layer of shame to a season that was never meant to carry shame. Being stuck implies that you are the reason nothing is moving. It implies fault. It implies that if you just tried harder, prayed better, believed more purely, did the right combination of things in the right order, the door would open. And when it doesn't open, being stuck turns into self-blame, and self-blame turns into shame, and shame is one of the heaviest things a person can carry through a long season. Waiting is different. Waiting means something is happening, even though you can't see it. Waiting means there is a process underway that has a purpose, even if that purpose hasn't been revealed to you yet. Waiting is not your fault. Waiting is not a referendum on your worth, your faith, or your effort. Waiting is simply where you are right now, in a story that is still being written, by a hand that has not lifted off the page. I want you to release yourself from the idea that this season is a test you might be failing. It's not a test in that sense. It's not a pass or fail. There is no score being kept on how quickly you figure out the lesson, so God will finally let you move on. That's not how He works, and if you've been living under that pressure, I hope some of that weight lifts off you tonight. You are not required to master this season perfectly for it to end. You are not required to stop struggling, stop doubting, stop having hard days before the answer is allowed to come. Grace covers the waiting the same way it covers everything else. You don't have to wait well by some impossible standard. You just have to keep going. That's it. That's genuinely enough. I also want to speak to something quieter, something you might not have said out loud to anyone. Sometimes, in a long waiting season, a strange kind of fear creeps in. The fear that if you finally fully surrender the timeline, if you stop gripping it so tightly, somehow that means it will never happen. As if your grip is what's keeping the possibility alive. As if loosening your hands means giving up on the outcome altogether. I understand where that fear comes from. But surrender was never about giving up on the outcome. Surrender is about giving up control of the outcome, while still holding on to hope for it. You can open your hands and still hope with your whole heart. In fact, open hands are usually the only hands capable of receiving anything at all. Clenched fists can't receive a gift. They can only hold what they already have and refuse everything else. So loosen your grip tonight, not because you've stopped caring, but because you trust the one who holds the actual outcome more than you trust your own grip on it. That is not resignation. That is the deepest form of hope there is. Hope that doesn't need to control the how or the when in order to remain fully alive. Let's breathe once more together, slower this time. In, and hold it for just a moment. And out, long and slow, like you're letting go of something heavy. I want you to notice something. You are still here. After everything this season has taken from you, the sleep, the certainty, the plans you thought were settled, maybe even some relationships that couldn't survive your changing. You are still here, still breathing, still listening to this voice in the dark, still somewhere underneath the exhaustion, still willing to trust. That willingness is not small. That willingness is the whole story, actually. Not the outcome you're waiting for, not the door that hasn't opened yet. The willingness to keep trusting in the meantime, that is the substance of what your life is being built out of day by day in a season no one else can fully see. I want to leave you with a picture before we close tonight. Picture the tree again, the one from January, the bare one, the one that looked dead to anyone walking by without knowing better. Picture it now, months later. Picture it in bloom. Picture the colour coming back into the branches, the leaves unfurling, the fruit beginning to form where there was nothing but silence for so long. That tree does not remember winter as wasted time. It doesn't look back at the bare months and think, that period didn't count. That period was a mistake. That period should have been skipped. Every bit of what it's carrying now, the strength in its trunk, the reach of its branches, the sweetness of its fruit, was built in the very season that looked like nothing. That is going to be true of you too. One day, and I don't know when, only He knows when, you are going to look back on this exact season, the one you're in tonight, the one that feels so heavy and so long and so uncertain, and you are going to see it completely differently than you see it right now. You're going to see the roots, you're going to see what was being built in the dark, you're going to understand, finally, that none of it was wasted. Not one day of it. Not one sleepless night. Not one unanswered prayer. Not one tear. Until that day comes, you don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to keep doing what you've been doing. Showing up, staying honest, staying soft instead of bitter, staying rooted instead of running. That's the whole assignment tonight. That's the whole assignment for this season. Let's pray together, quietly in our own hearts, as we close. Lord, I don't fully understand this season. I don't know why it's taking as long as it has, but I trust you with it. I trust you with the timing I can't control. I trust you with the outcome I can't force. Help me to stay soft in the waiting instead of growing hard. Help me to stay rooted instead of running. Help me to see this season not as an empty space, but as ground where you are quietly, faithfully, patiently growing something in me that could not have grown any other way. Thank you for staying with me in the silence. Thank you for never once leaving the room. I trust you. I trust you. I trust you. Rest now. Let your breathing slow all the way down. Let your body sink into wherever you are. You don't have to hold anything up right now. You don't have to figure anything out tonight. Just let yourself be held in the waiting exactly as you are. This season is not wasted. You are not wasted, and He is not finished. Rest well.